Well, as GM and Chrysler fell into bankruptcy, their parts suppliers have lost revenue and are on thin ice themselves. They're planning to ask President Obama's auto task force this week for up to $10 billion of additional support. Now, without extra funding, the parts makers may be unable to buy materials or pay their workers. Alex Ortolani, I should say, wrote this story. I should know. I've known you from a few years back. I should know how to say your last name. Anyway, you wrote this. Right. You wrote this story from Bloomberg and joins us now. And Alex, what are these companies? What are they looking for when they go to Washington?
Right, Betty. Well, last night we learned that a few auto supplier trade groups and some auto supplier executives will be talking to Obama's task force tomorrow, and they're looking for $8 to $10 billion in aid, as you said. It isn't direct loans, but what they're looking for is for the government to guarantee or back bank loans to auto suppliers. The idea here is that that will loosen up the credit market for these auto suppliers. It will get banks lending to them again. Auto suppliers here in the U.S. are strapped for cash. Auto production is down. They're not getting orders. So this group's going to try to make an argument that lending needs to be loosened up.
Now, they already got, I believe, $5 billion in aid. So what have they done with that so far?
Right. Well, earlier this year, before GM and Chrysler filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, the U.S. Treasury gave them $5 billion. But that money was to be allocated by GM and Chrysler to auto suppliers. Essentially, Chrysler had $1.5 billion, and as the program was ramping up, they filed for bankruptcy, and they said, listen, we're going to pay you through the bankruptcy process. They haven't officially said that the program is not in use, but they are trying to pay through bankruptcy process. GM, with $3.5 billion from that package, says they want to continue to use it while they're in bankruptcy.
Okay, and give us the argument. I mean, what's the argument for the government, really? I mean, why should the government, why should American taxpayers put up this money anyway for these auto suppliers?
Right. Well, we already know the taxpayers committing a lot of money to GM and Chrysler. What these trade groups are going to say, and the suppliers are their customers, we need to point that out, but what they will say is there are two major issues. One is when GM and Chrysler start to produce vehicles again, they're going to need the parts. And in order for these suppliers to be healthy and providing parts, they need cash. So for the new companies to emerge and work, they're going to argue these suppliers need aid. Second thing is the economy in general. The supply base is very interconnected. So if a major GM supplier goes down, that could also be a supplier to Ford or Toyota, could cause delays and issues for their production.
Okay, so from some of your reporting, Alex, and what's the chance of success for this?
It is difficult to say, but we do know earlier this year these groups requested $18.5 billion in aid. As we just discussed, Betty, they got $5 billion. It's also going to depend on the banks this time. Do they want to lend to auto suppliers? Do they think it's a good bet? Will the government backing be enough to get them into this sector?
Okay, and if none of this happens, what are we looking at? We're looking at more rampant bankruptcies in the auto supplier industry, or what? Give us the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of analysts and people in the industry here will say there will be more bankruptcies. This is over 4,000 suppliers in the U.S. There's a lot of overcapacity in the industry. The question is, will these bankruptcies that are expected cause delays, or will they be costly for the automakers? Okay,
Alex Ortolani, thanks so much for joining us, talking about the auto suppliers in the U.S. seeking more aid.